On the big story of the last couple of days, the news that the FA Cup from next season is going to be changing, and it's going to be changing pretty drastically. With from the first round onwards, replays becoming a thing of the past. Merce, we've heard lots of managers having their say, from the Premier League managers all the way down the football pyramid. With this announcement this week, for you, has the magic of the FA Cup dissolved?
I think that's been going recently. I think when I was growing up, when I was playing football, the ultimate was to win the FA Cup. It was the big game of the year. No disrespect, but every year, two of the top teams are always in the final when it comes to it. I think the FA have changed that themselves, kicking off at 5:30s and changing times. And, you know, I've even done it where they had it at the penultimate. They're going to put it back to the pot. But I remember when I was at Aston Villa, the cup final was played the second last game of the season. So they're not helping themselves. The thing that I would say with this, and I would say is, and I've always said this, it's a money maker for the smaller teams. The smaller teams don't get the money fed down to them. They need this to survive. When it gets to the third round, when like Maidstone got into the third round this year, I know they went to Ipswich, beat them, and then they went to Coventry. But it should be seeded. So they're the lowest seeded team, so they play Man United, who are the biggest crowd, the biggest club. And that's how they make their money, these teams. They get their one game. They get their one game. I was manager at Walsall. We got to the third round, played Stoke. I mean, there was about 4,000 people there. I mean, it cost us as much money to get there than what we made. And that was our game, to get there and try and make money for the club, because that will feed the club for a year or maybe even 2 years. Who knows? So for me, I think you've got to have it seeded, play the teams away, and whoever gets in, the lowest seed will play the highest seed, and so on downwards. We used to have it years ago in the League Cup. You remember? You used to play home and away against the lesser teams to give them more money. You know, that's what I say. But I don't think the FA have helped themselves. But, you know, for me, again, small clubs miss out again.
Yeah, and Clinton, it seems to be the extinguishing of hope for those clubs further down the football pyramid. You look at Horsham this season, first round, 100 places between themselves and Barnsley. They get a replay after a 3-3 at Oakwell. They eventually go out by 3-0. It's the hope of those smaller clubs, of a potential FA Cup run, of getting one of the big teams in the third round, of potentially getting a replay as well. That's going to go, isn't it, part of that?
Yeah, it's not good.
That's not good news for the pyramid, is it?
I get it, what the Premier League teams want to do, talking about the lot of
But they
football,
want to look after themselves.
They want to look after themselves, I get that. But remember, there's more teams. This football in this country is about all the teams in any league. So it's disappointing, because you're right. I think we were talking about it before on the way in. If it gets to the third round, say you're someone like Accrington, I think if you say you draw someone like a Man City, you should play away so you can get all of that money, so the club can get money in. I remember when Exeter did it and they had a replay and they went to Liverpool and they sold it out. They got most of the money and it helped the club. It helped the club for at least 2 years. So teams like that, they need help. So it doesn't sit right with me at the moment. That nowhere near does that sit right with me. It's nowhere near good enough. And we can talk about, it helps the Premier League teams, but at least have the conversation with the teams that are lower down. The teams lower down, they said they didn't even have a conversation, didn't know what was going. But they shouldn't be don't boycott the FA Cup though, because as Merce said, when you're growing up, all you we're dreaming about is winning the FA Cup.
Well, the EFL statement yesterday said the agreement which now sees the abolition of replays from the competition format was agreed solely between the Premier League and the FA. That was the powerful EFL statement yesterday. And Tim, looking at the roster of Premier League managers we heard from yesterday, speaking about the FA Cup and this decision, I mean, Erik ten Hag called it a very sad day for the culture of English football. Yeah. In reality, do the big clubs, the big managers, the players at those big clubs really care?
Well, the managers are going to say what they think it's the right thing to say.
Well, they have to, don't they?
Of course.
But deep down, they don't care, do they?
Well, deep down, that means less games for them, possibly less games. And they're the ones screaming for it. That's the reason why they've made the change, is because they don't get as many football matches, you know. But if you're successful, it's always been the same case. You know, you're successful, you're going to play more games, and everyone wants to play more games. And if you're winning games of football, you don't get tired. It's a real shame for the pyramid, obviously. It is a money maker for them, potentially. I would say that there's very few giant killings now. You know, with the pitches the way they are at the moment, you see. But the dream of the giant killing is always out there, and it should remain, in my opinion. So it's a devastating blow for them. But there's not many giant killings out there. I agree with Clinton. I think it's a really good idea. If they're drawn against the big side, then they play against the big side at home. They're not going to complain about that. Man United would host anyone. It gives them more chance to go through. They haven't got to travel, and anyone like an Exeter, like your old clubs, they would mind going there, would they?
Well, Maidstone made 700,000 from their excellent FA Cup campaign. I mean, Sue, as we look at it as a whole, and we can talk about the influence of UEFA in terms of what's happening at the moment, it's massive. FIFA as well. Who does this ultimately favour apart from the bigger clubs?
Well, it is just the bigger clubs, isn't it? I think it was inevitable that it was going to happen because of FIFA obviously expanding the Club World Cup competition, UEFA expanding the Champions League. So there's obviously going to be more games, more teams in there, and there's just no free dates in the football calendar. So that was obviously, the reason for doing it. So it does suit the top sides because they'll be saying, well, there's fatigue, there's more likely of injuries. The standard is going to go down.
You want to be playing in these big games, in these big competitions, don't you?
But that's what
in all these competitions.
Yeah, but that's what the top clubs would say. That would be their rationale for doing it. But I don't like it. I think, you think of it can be transformative, can't it, for the lower teams in terms of they get a result, the gate, the amount that they'll bring in, the revenue, and that could keep them going for years, couldn't it? It could help with the training facilities. It could help with so. I don't like it, but something had to give somewhere, and it's more the lack of communication. I think that's the thing that got me, that they haven't communicated with people.
So spot on. But you know what? I know we all speak about it, but we probably don't support teams there. Mike, you do support Tranmere. I know Mike's meant to speak about refereeing decisions.
No,
but
he talks
I'd love
about
to get
Tranmere
your
freely.
opinion. I love your opinion on this because you're an avid Tranmere fan. How do you feel about it?
I think it's unfortunate. I think Mark Palace put a statement out this week that not one EFL club was, consulted in this situation. But I agree with what you said. If you get to the third round, you're not going to get a League One or League Two side ever winning the Premier League. It's not going to happen. It's impossible. So why not play them away from home? Yeah. If Tranmere played away, I don't know, Tottenham, they're going to get hammered probably, but it's a good day out for the fans. They make a few quid and everybody's happy.
Ultimately, though, Mike, it's come down to finances in the AFL clubs. We're having this debate, and ultimately, it's money. Yeah. That's what it comes down to. Tranmere, talking about a replay. I remember going to Ninian Park with Spurs against Cardiff. We're talking about one leg. Cardiff had a better chance of beating us, and we drew 0-0. If it had gone to extra time, they might have beat us. Bring them back to White Hart Lane. We wipe the floor, we win 4-0. So you've got to try and think on that side.
Are you in favour of this?
No, I'm not in favour. No, I'm not trying to say that. I started in the EFL and got the opportunity, but you think of the League Two teams, can they try and use that in a benefit? We're having this debate financially. That is the only outcome. Why are we trying to cancel the replays? If the EFL clubs get more money and it's fed to him in that way, I'm sure they would accept it. In my opinion, that's what I think it comes down to. You can talk about the players going to Old Trafford and having an amazing day. You get your floor wiped to get that.
The problem is, as well, is like teams in the Premier League, some of them, they can't win the Premier League. Yeah. They're in. What are they playing for? Surely to win a trophy. Yeah. And if it gives them a replay, surely it gives them more of a chance of, like an Everton or a Bournemouth or someone like that, or a Brentford or someone to win the FA Cup. Yeah. It's just money. Yeah. It's all it is now. It's scary. It's scary.
You never hear. We're only talking to the teams in the top teams in the Premier League who are playing European football and too many games and they go a long way. The lower teams in the Premier League, they've not got enough games to. They've got big squads of players and they can't give them games. So to give them games in the FA Cup, it's a way of keeping your players fit. We never ever used to hear players come out and say, we're tired, there's too many games. We have recently. There's top players who come out and say, there's too many games, you need to protect us. Never used to hear that. Used to hear it from the managers sometimes to protect them. It's a load of nonsense. Play football. It's what you get paid for. Forget the amount of money you get paid for. If you're successful, you play more games, and everyone wants to be successful.